everybody, this is Jean here, Jean Truelove from Truelove Quilts for You. As you can see, I have been working on my my Dear Jean quilt from Jean's Block Party 2021. If you're new to this channel, we are making a sampler quilt. We're about a couple months into this project. So far, I've been showing beginner quilters how to make simple blocks, which we have been concentrating on. And we have made some multiples of some blocks, trying to hone basic quilting skills. This is not an advanced quilting course. If you're an advanced quilter, you'll realize I've been making simple things. However, we are not making a simple sampler quilt, which is block after block, row after row. We are doing this. This is my third block party. I had a 2018, 2019, and 2021. In a medallion style quilt, which is a little bit more advanced looking actually, but hopefully you beginners, I will have been making it easy enough for you to follow step by step by step. This week, and maybe for the next 2 weeks or so, because a lot of people have to get caught up and I'm busy, so whenever I put up my next one, but this week is my big center medallion, my Dresden Plate. I have worked on my Dresden Plate. I had done an introduction, just some little interesting facts about the Dresden Plate. What it entails, you do need a template, you do need a ruler. This is my Dresden Plate, and as you can see, I have put like corners on it. I was going to do smaller Dresden plates in the corner, and actually somebody who follows my Truelove Quilts for You Facebook page actually did that, because I was saying I was going to do it. I got fed up. I didn't want to do it, so I just snowballed the corners. As you can see, everything is just pinned up here on my design batting wall here. Nothing is you know, sewn at this point. It's just blocks. So this is our center block here that I'm explaining how to do in the tutorial to follow. As you can see, we have 4 corners that are still blank, and my quilt is going to be growing. I have going to be putting up in my tutorial the actual idea pattern, my idea of making this quilt together with the borders and the sashing at the very end, because then that, well, if you know me, I don't do math, or I do math, but I don't do precise, like cut the border at this size. I just sort of make it fit, and I will be telling you how I do that, because some people are doing exactly what I'm doing. But this is just my idea. If you're following along, we are making finished 6-inch blocks. And as I was saying in the very beginning, if you check out my playlist, you can just put them in a row and have a traditional sampler quilt. You can put them all together, you can put them with sashing, but this is my idea. 1/4-inch seam for my Dresden Plate. I did not use a scant quarter. I did a perfect 1/4-inch seam. I show you exactly how I have cut it, how I have stitched it, and how I have ironed it to get it nice and flat. And again, I have used a double layer of stabilizing on my backing. You don't have to do that. Again, I mentioned it in my tutorial. Brenda, a subscriber, says you just need a stabilizer behind this stitching. That's all. She used dryer sheets and then cut them away. So just a stabilizer, an inner facing. I used a whole muslin piece, and again I show you that. I quite like that because this is a substantial block here. And as I say, there's lots of seams. Again, I'm going to be putting sashing in this. It's a very busy quilt, as you can see. It's very lively. I'm probably going to be putting in just a plain, either white or maybe even a gray sashing to just unify the whole thing. Again, I explain that. So there you go. This is our block. My Dresden plate, everybody was excited about that. I think you're going to be very excited about the 4 corners. I'm going to do the exact same block. It's a 12-inch, 12.5-inch, 13, whatever it ends up being, a bordered block here, and it's going to be an applique, but every single one is exactly the same. So that is to come. I'm going to take a little bit of a break right now. I have a lot of things on the go, so concentrate, catch up, you guys. A lot of you have been busy and are gotten a little bit behind, but catch up. Concentrate on your Dresden plate. Just take it steady, take it slowly. A lot of people are saying Dresdens are hard. I never found them hard. It's just you have to do it really, really well and precise, and you come up with a pretty Dresden plate. So I do hope you enjoy this tutorial to follow, folks. And again, thank you so very much for all your support. And yeah, love from the Trueloves. All right, see ya. Bye. Now, this is our big block this week, and I'm ready to construct our Dresden plate. As I showed you in my last video, I have cut out my 20 fans from my Dresden plate ruler, and as you know, I was using this ruler, my Dresden 8 inches from there to there with a flat top. Okay, in my last video, if you weren't familiar with it, if you wanted to do a round top, I was explaining how you do that. But right now, I'm going to be creating a Dresden with my 20 blades with a pointed top. Now, I'm going to go over, I'm going to take these over, which my pieces have been lovely and ironed and starched, and I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and demonstrate the next step. I've made certain that my machine is running really well, and what we're going to do with my blades on the side here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the pretty sides together on the top edge. Okay, I'm going to fold that in half like that. Okay, and I'm going to start at the raw edges. All right, I'm just going to start, fold it up like that. I'm going to start, and with the top edges together, I'm going to put my needle down, and I'm going to go in 1/4 inch. Now I'm going to chain piece all 20 of these blades. It's very important that you keep your 1/4 inch. And again, when we're chain piecing, I keep my needle down. I grab my next one. It's in front of me, straight in front of me. Right sides together on the top. Put that right under the presser foot and just continue keeping my needle down. And then I can just slot that right in. Just go slowly, keeping your 1/4 inch. And I'm going to chain piece all 20 of these. Now, I've finished chain piecing. I'm going to pull up my presser foot and I'm going to clip. And then I'm just going to clip all of these apart, these chains. Now I'm going to go over to my ironing board and we're going to magically make our points. I have all of my fans here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my thumb right up there in the seam there, and I'm going to push that seam over, okay? And then I'm going to, with my finger, I'm going to just push that to the very top, that point, okay? So your seam is not sort of scrunched up. It is going to one side. In this case, it's going to that side. You just want to sort of squeeze that together. And then, if you want to make these absolutely perfect, you could iron these. You could press these in half. I don't find it necessary, but if you wanted to do it that way, to make sure you get dead center, you could press them in half, okay? And then you line up that seam exactly with your pressed line there, okay? And then you're going to iron that top. All right, now I don't find it necessary to do that. I can pretty much eyeball my my blade, and I don't love pressing it because you really have to work to get that pressed fold line out. So, and if you're off a few, it doesn't matter. So again, I'm just going to put my thumb up there, push that seam in like that, and tuck that up to one side so you don't have a lump. And take your time on this, and then just eyeball it the same exact width from here to there. And then you know that's in the center. But again, if you want to mark it or if you want to iron it, by all means you can. This is where you want to press really well so your points, your finished points, as you can see, are lovely, beautiful. So I'm just going to continue turning my blades inside out, pressing to one side. Now again, let me just see. If you wanted to use a chopstick or a stiletto, by all means, to get that point, you can. And then, again, taking your time, eyeballing or marking the exact center where we want our points to be. Separated my 20 blades into my warm colors and my cool colors, and basically I have reds and pinks and oranges and blue and green. So in order to have my my whole Dresden plate red, warm, cool, what I'm going to do is I put like what I'm saying, red, yellow, orange, red, yellow, orange, red, yellow, orange, like that, okay? And then I've done the same thing here, blue, green, or blue, green, whatever, like that type of thing. So now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to overthink it. I'm going to, though, just put this over here. I'm going to pull a warm and a cool, and I'm just going to put them next to each other like this, and with my warm over here, and I'm going to match up the top edge here. Now, as you know, we have finished off this top edge, okay? And we are going to be stitching down. We're going to just scratch that together. We're going to be stitching down from the top down to the bottom. If the bottom doesn't match, you don't have to worry about that, because that was going to be a raw edge circle anyway. Probably won't match. It'll be a little bit out. Doesn't matter about this end, because we're going to put our circle in the center, but it does matter that you get this point here, when you put the right sides to the pretty sides together, that this point right there, 1/4 of an inch, put your needle down, and then you press your foot down, and then you're going to stitch. Now I will back stitch a few stitches on that top corner there, and I'm going to go very slow, and I'm just going to keep my 1/4 inch right down to the bottom there. making sure I don't go bigger or smaller, because it can be a bit disconcerting because you're going at an angle. I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to chain piece all of them. Again, I'm not overthinking. I've just put my colors together here. The thing that I'm making sure of is that this top edge here is going to be lovely. I'm going to lift up my presser foot with my needles down, making sure I have my 1/4 inch. I'm just going to just back stitch that top edge just slightly. So we're chain piecing, but we are back stitching on that top edge. And again, just go slowly, right off that angle, and then continue. Pretty sides together. Match this point here. Lift my presser foot. Just a few back stitches to secure that edge. I leave my needle down the whole time, and I'll just continue. Now I'm going to cut these chains apart. And again, just grabbing willy-nilly. I'm going to just reds. I think I'll do this one, green and red. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing and make sets of 4. I'm going to continue until I have a full circle. And now I'm going to sew the last 2 together. Now, I'm going to go over to my ironing board and I'm going to iron this. So what I will do is I will spritz this, again, with some water, or you can use a bit of sizing. And then I'm going to very carefully, very carefully, just with the tip of my iron, I'm going to press each seam very carefully to one side. Just take your time, open up those seams. It's easier as you go along. You can just see how they flatten out, and your plate, you'll see, will get bigger. It will grow. And that's what we want it to do. Just keeping it nice and straight and square. Round. You just want to press those seams open. You can see they're all scrunched up here, but as we press them, they become the actual size that we want. Take your time doing this. I find it's easier if I just do it in front of me the whole time. And again, I just use a bit of water to loosen those fibers, and you can feel it where those seams want to be pressed to each side. Just treat each individual seam at a time, keeping everything nice and straight up here. And your plate will grow as it's supposed to be. It's getting a bit bigger, but flatter. Don't worry, it will turn out flat if you've kept your nice 1/4 of an inch. Again, I find it easier to keep it right in front of me to do this. Just do a few seams at a time. I will reiterate in the beginning how important it is that you press these at a 1/4 of an inch, obviously. Now sometimes, even the best laid plans, your plate will not lay flat. And the beauty of it is you can take in or you can let out a few seams. But if you do it this way, most probably you can iron it and spray it and starch it sort of into submission here. I always find that helps. Again, just a little bit at a time. Pulling it out. Pulling it up. Making sure your hole gets sort of bigger there. Concentrating on inside here as well as the seams and the points out here. Again, I think you can see the importance of spritzing it or using a light sizing to keep your fabric where you want it to go. And then out. And as you can see, oops, this one's going the wrong way. As you can see, when I turn this over, I can start ironing it out. Okay, it's laying pretty flat. Now I turn it over. My seams are all opened, and now that one's a little bit tucked. Now I can spritz it again and really start pulling it with my fingers. I'm sort of pulling it outwards. I'm pulling it outwards, sort of stretching it. That's the beauty of, I always say, of cotton. Cotton stretches. And there you go. Again, don't worry about your center section, your center hole, but look. And there. It's pretty good. Now a lot of people, and I will address this again in the beginning, a lot of people will sew, since we have 20 blades, you might sew 5 together. You might sew 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and make a quadrant, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. By all means, you can do that. I will address that. I never had a problem sewing one after another myself. And then I think the trick also is spraying and ironing, obviously, really, really well. So in my last video, I was telling you how I actually, to stabilize my Dresden plate, I actually line my fabric here. You don't have to do that at all. I just have to thank one of my subscribers, Brenda. She had mentioned that she puts, when she puts her on one piece of fabric, when she puts her Dresden plate to stitch it down, to applique, she uses around that seam a dryer sheets, and then she cuts away the dryer sheets. Again, you can use just a little bit around your Dresden plate when we go to secure it. I don't mind lining my entire piece. I stabilize my entire center panel. Again, because I think I have a lot of seams in my quilt, so it's sort of heavy. There's a lot of seams going on in all of my blocks. blocks, and so then when I put on my block, it's a little bit heavy for what I think is one piece of fabric, but most people just applique onto one piece. But again, you have to be careful when you're stitching that your applique doesn't scrunch up your back fabric here. That's the reason for stabilizing. I've already stitched on my top edge there, and I use, as I was saying again, I use an Elmer's glue stick with a disappearing glue, purple glue I should say. It disappears beautifully. It's frightening to look at because it goes on bright purple. You can use a Elmer's glue, school glue, like a soluble. You can spray baste if you're doing it this way, by all means. I just want to now secure just where my plate's going to go. I have cut this generously, about 25.5 inches. We're going to be cutting it down, but I would rather err on the cautious side. And I'm just going to be putting dabs of glue on here. It will disappear. I will leave it before I put my plate on. I would iron it because then it dries. I've never had any issue with this gumming up my needle, clumping up or anything like that. So I'm going to bring this down and just basically make this one with my front fabric here, my block. Again, I've made this big, so I'm just sort of going to eyeball my center, my medallion on here, my block, and because I'm going to be cutting this down, so I can just see that my block is pretty well centered on there. By all means, if you're working with a 24-inch block, you would want to maybe fold this in half and then fold it in a quarter and find that exact corner, that exact center. I'm okay with this because I'm going to be cutting it down. I have enough room at the bottom and enough room at the top. As you know, if you've followed me, you know I always err on the generous side. I always do things a little bit larger, and I can always cut away. So here's my Dresden plate. Now, again, there are many, many ways that you can applique. You can spray baste this on. You can, by all means, pin it on. I do use my Elmer's glue. Again, I love using my Elmer's glue. I put a little drop on and a little at the top. And again, I will iron this so it just never has given me an issue gumming up my needle. So to go down on the blade there, because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a decorative blanket stitch over on my Brother sewing machine. I'll take you over, and as you can see, that's glued on there really, really nicely, and it disappears just a little bit like that. Just takes a few seconds. There's actual quilter's glue, by all means, just for the job, but these are what, a few dollars for a dozen of them in this country. Very good value, I think, for the money. And again, if you think the purple's going to ruin your quilt, it doesn't. It disappears. And we're going to be working with the top edge here. Now, if you have, as I was explaining last video, if you are using this ruler, it makes the points. But again, I had shown you my example of a rounded edge, of a rounded top that you would have cut perhaps out of this template, but then by rounded it yourself, just cut a nice curve. So you curve it. That means that would mean that edge here, a rounded one, would be raw edge, which is fine, which is absolutely fine. Again, this is an example of my rounded edge that I had made a while ago. And as you can see, I did a nice chunky blanket stitch that is raw. I cut out my template, and then I rounded the tops. They might not all be exactly the same, but they're pretty good. And I did a nice thick wide blanket stitch on there. I'm going to be doing a blanket stitch on this one also. I am at my brother's sewing machine. I do most of my piecing on my Juki, which is over there, which is my straight stitch machine with no decorative stitches. For this, I have to use my brother machine if I wanted to use a decorative stitch. If you don't have a computerized whiz machine and you only have your grandmom's straight stitch, that's perfectly fine. To applique your block on after you've secured it, however, you would just do a straight stitch from the valley here up to the peak. Put your needle down to the valley, put your needle down up to the peak, and just skew your fabric around until you do a nice straight stitch. Same thing as if you're doing a zigzag stitch. The same thing, you would just do one section at a time. Don't try to rush this process because it will look sloppy. I like to use a wide blanket stitch. And what I've done also is I don't have my on this machine, I don't have my LED light strip, so the lighting isn't quite as good. But hopefully you can see that what I've done is very important. I have set my machine up because it's computerized, and I've made a notation if for some reason I have to come away from my machine and turn it off, because I've done a computerized stitch. My stitch here is the width is 5, the length is 2.0. Again, every machine is different. I experimented with this decorative blanket stitch and I didn't love that, and then I came on, because my machine has a ton, I came on to this. It's a plain old decorative wide, fairly deep blanket stitch. So I know my machine is set up beautifully. I'm sitting right in front of my machine. I have my wide foot on here. I'm going to put my needle down, and I'm not going to bring my thread up because it's on the back of my block. So everything is computerized here, but I'm going to go slow. I'm going to put my needle down into this valley here, and my machine is just going to take bite by bite over to here, onto the top of my blade here. I'm going to go slowly, and I'm looking at my needle going right next to this part right here. I don't want it to go on top, and I don't want it to come over here. So I'm not worrying about how much it's biting. I'm worrying about how my needle is going to go right there, and then I'm going to keep my needle down. I'm going to lift my presser foot, and again, slowly rotate my blade, and I'm just going to come back over, and I'm just going to take bite by bite. Now, there are ways that you can get your stitches absolutely perfect at the top. I'm so not bothered. It's okay. If it's a little bit of a clump of stitches, it's fine. I have to keep my fingers here, but I will keep my needle right in that valley, presser foot up, and rotate. And I'm keeping my fabric nice and straight. Now, I've glued this backing on. As you can see, I have glued my backing on. Again, Brenda, thank you so much. If you want to put a stabilizer right here, that's because when we're stitching, and I've said this a million times, when you're stitching your decorative stitches here, this is I did this with about, 4 layers of fabric. So my stitches are really nice and straight and not gathering. If I had just done 1 layer of fabric, I should have done that for demonstration, it probably would have creased up a little bit, probably would have tucked up a little bit, like that. A little bit nasty. So for demonstration, I just grabbed this piece of fabric here, and this has 2 pieces because it's folded over, and then the 2 pieces. So I'm assured that my Dresden plate with my stabilizer is going to be laying nice and flat, and my block fabric is not going to like ruck up. Now I'm just going to keep my needle right at the top there at that point. Needle up, presser foot up, and I'm just going to continue. Hopefully you can see that. I'm just going to continue my nice pleased. I like the look of a nice thick chunky blanket stitch. Maybe if you're doing more of a I've used bright white thread on this. Maybe if you're doing more of like a homespunny fabric, you would do a black blanket stitch, a nice thick blanket stitch, because it looks like a homemade like a folk art stitch. I love it. When I was making this, that maybe I wanted to do a small Dresden plate here in the corners. I'm not doing that because it's not that it's that hard, but what I've decided on and what I'm going to be snowballing the corners, okay? And I'm going to be using, I've auditioned quite a few different pieces of fabric. I'm going to sort of girly this up with this hot pink and adding a little bit of uniformity to this now. So I've actually cut out, for me, you don't have to do this. This has a bit of a ridge on it. Let me put it over here. I did that because of the bright light. Yeah, let me just get it out of the bright light here. I'm filming this in the late afternoon. So let me see. So what I've done is, let me see if I can show you this. I've cut out the exact same fabrics. I've cut out 4 5.5-inch squares, okay? Cut out 4 5.5-inch squares, and I'm going to be putting them, I'm going to be snowballing. Remember our block number, what was it, block number 2 or block number 3, one of them? I'm going to be snowballing the corners. I'm going to be stitching right on, or one thread inside into here to allow for this turn of the fabric, like that. And then we're going to end up with a triangle piece of fabric having stitched on or right next to that fold line. Then what I'm going to do, I've just cut these out, you know, willy-nilly. I'm going to be adding the black and white stripe border, probably a little bit wider than this. And so my center block, let me come around here. My center block is going to look a bit like this. And you'll have seen this in the beginning. Okay? There is my center block, my center dress. So here is my scrappy looking medallion quilt coming along. As you can see, I have made a couple of duplicate blocks. We made the 2 flying geese, but I've made a couple of these other blocks to sort of flesh this out. That's why I have these many blocks. You can do that because we want to get our quilt on the road and going. But there is, it's really coming along. There is my center medallion. Now everything is just pinned here on my batting wall here. I was concentrating this time on my Dresden plate, and whichever, if you did a rounded top or if you did a pointed top, or if you did a straight stitch or a zigzag or a blanket stitch or a satin stitch, I've chosen my lovely my lovely blanket stitch. And my corners here. Again, everything is just pinned it up here willy-nilly, but just to get a look of how my quilt's coming along. Really pretty, bright, scrappy, real pretty. Very happy springtime quilt. I'm really pleased the way it's coming along. I hope you guys are too. All right, love from the Trueloves.